You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. My name is Damon Brown. I'm an entrepreneurial coach here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. Shout out to y'all that are watching on LinkedIn, watching on Amazon, even watching on the main channel at BringYourWorth.tv. I'm here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. I've been on that road with you. I've been on that road before, and I had my two beautiful boys and being a stay-at-home dad with our first son, being a stay-at-home dad while guiding my second startup, Cuddler, along with my two co-founders, to acquisition within a year, around my son's second birthday. It was such a wild ride. I talk about it in my different books. I'm so glad to have this channel on here. It's 399 episodes. This is episode 399. You guys have been coming through, all 18,000 plus of y'all. Bring Your Worth TV, regularly live on Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free at the link below. And my latest book, the 27th, is the compilation, the complete Bring Your Worth collection. There's some bestsellers in here. It's three definitive collections in one, including The Ultimate Bites as Entrepreneur, Bring Your Worth, which of course is the name of this channel and my publishing company, and Build From Now, How to Know Your Power so you abundance to nourish the world. It's available everywhere. Go ahead and check it out. If you want to listen to the audiobook, of course, you can grab it on Audible or any of those platforms. You can also go ahead and listen to it for free right on this channel at BringYourWorth.tv. Just click on the link below. In case you missed it a week ago, excuse me, in case you missed it a week ago, um, I hope I had my volume there. There we go. Yeah, I got my arms flailing. Shout out to my New Jersey family. I'm originally from South Jersey. My arms are flailing so much, my microphone was all the way over there. Unlocking the power of solitude. That's my episode from a week ago. Thanks, y'all, for coming through, talking about how you can find peace of mind and, frankly, a turbulent time. And as I say in many of my books and many of my episodes, every time is a turbulent time. Man, if you know your history, there's really nothing new under the sun. It always feels like we're in a unique time. And then sometimes it just feels like 1978 again. Funny how that works, how things go in a circle. Today's show, I am excited. My favorite emotional intelligence questions. I love talking about emotional intelligence, particularly when it comes to us as solopreneurs and particularly non-traditional entrepreneurs. Because when I say non-traditional entrepreneurs, we're usually of a certain ilk. I love that word. Of a certain ilk, of a certain energy that doesn't quite fit the norm. So you could be part of the LGBTQ or queer community, whichever term you prefer. You could be part of a minority group. You could be a person of color. You could be all three. And those different things fall into different ways that our different communities need to be served, different ways that we can show up that allow us to be our full selves, and us working with the startups, with the side hustles, with the things we're creating. Not only are we ideally contributing to having safe spaces and strong places, forget safe, strong spaces for those people, those communities that have not had the support that other communities have had, but also by example, by being a shining star, then we're actually able to give permission and be able to be a light for folks who see themselves in us. Emotional intelligence questions are a big part of it because if you're not part of mainstream culture, if what you're doing is unusual, which look at my resume, you got my sympathy and empathy. If you're trying to do something different, and if you're not trying to do something different, then why are you doing it? All of us are trying to do something different, particularly if you're watching this show. That means you're going to have friction. That means you're going to have people not understand where you're coming from. You might have even have hostility or challenges towards you. Because of those particular things, your emotional intelligence for the average entrepreneur might have to be right here. For us, it has to be up here. It has to be because there's certain questioning and certain intensity when you are a non-traditional entrepreneur, one, and second of all, when you're trying to do something different. It can be tough to be an entrepreneur as is. It can be tough to build a side hustle when you're living in the hood and people aren't really respecting or seeing your vision. It could be hard when you're part of this particular group and you want to break from the pack and do something different. There's a different energy to that. You need to have your emotional intelligence on point I know for my two startups, my four TED Talks, one of them on the second stage of the main one up in Vancouver slash Whistler, and another one at the various TEDx's, even with my best-selling books, and even the ones that didn't sell that well, even more importantly, it required some type of emotional intelligence because the whole time I'm going against the grain. If you're trying to make an impact, you need to be grounded enough to move forward, and you got to start asking those emotional intelligence questions. Emotional intelligence, very briefly, is how you respond and react to other people based on your whole knowledge of self and knowledge of where other people are coming from. Responding is something that you think about and something that you put forward. It is almost strategic. Reacting is that first initial punch. So sometimes you're going to have a bad reaction to something, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a good response as far as how you're going to handle it. So we're going to talk about those things. And there's three main questions that in my coaching practice, I've been a business coach for several years now, probably going on a decade now, almost a decade. And I've coached several hundreds of y'all. In that process, there's three questions that I absolutely adore. You've heard some of these in the previous programs. We're going to really go and break it down. We're also going to talk about some of the books and the therapists slash teachers that inspired those particular questions. So let's get into the episode. Today's episode, first of all, though, is sponsored by Shortform, the ultimate book reader companion. You guys know I'm a fan of books. I have my new office. So I have little books there, right by a picture of my grandmother, rest in peace. But I have books all behind me. I have books in my other office. I have books all over the place. Even for me, bibliophile, I think is the term, books serve a really big part of my identity and how I'm able to uh, to really do the work that I care about. And so short form has been a great partner. I'm going to go and show you some of the stuff that they do. It comes down to two basic things. For short form, they're really good at encapsulating the big ideas within long books. I'm really into long books, and my books are very long. I just showed you a very long book of mine. I think that book's like 70,000 words. So finding these big ideas and breaking it down. The second thing it does is it allows you to go deeper into the books you already love. So a good instance, and I've shared this before, is with 48 Laws of Power. Shout out to Robert Greene. Hope you're doing well. One of my favorite books. And I remember I was doing an episode earlier this year, and I wanted to highlight one of the laws of power because it came to mind. Law of Power book, which should be on your bookshelf, is huge. It's like this thick. It's like 2 inches thick. Might be longer, but 2 inches thick. Really heavy book, like physically heavy book. I lent it to somebody, never gave it back. A really good use of power, I might add. And I didn't. I think I might have had the audiobook. It was too much. The book itself is like literally hundreds of thousands of words. It's a thick book. What was that particular law? I went on here. They had the law right there. And one of my favorite laws: don't isolate yourself. Never isolate yourself when you come under pressure. It just cuts you off from information you need and people who could help you. And when real danger arises, you won't see it coming. Instead, make a point of being outgoing. Contact with others increases your power. Now, I'm an introvert. I talked about that in last week's episode about solitude. So I'm a solitude advocate, but I have a big connection with other people, particularly in the groups that I'm involved in. Great example of that, as far as number one, it being a great rule. But number two, I didn't have to go through the entire thing. And it's beyond just the old school Cliff Notes, which as a middle-aged person, you might remember Cliff Notes. It's well beyond Cliff Notes. I was never a fan of that. No shots at Cliff Notes. But it breaks it down detailed enough, even with the sidebars, to talk about it. So number one, if you have a massive bookshelf like I do, or you have these really heavy books and you need to do immediate research, like when you have a show every week, then this comes in handy. The second thing is that it actually allows you to go deeper into a particular thing. So let's look at my guy, Robert Greene again. Sorry, my internet's running a little bit slow today. There we go. Robert Greene. Right. So, and talk about prolific. And they're all really good books. Mastery's fantastic, et cetera, et cetera. But then you see the podcasts, and you see the podcast episodes. And then there's actually more than this if you click view all, but so you can go deeper into that. So you could say, I love Robert Greene's book. and or I love all of his work. I want more of it. You can go on here and it's like a whole web of it. Even citing articles from HBR, so Harvard Business Review, or Inc. Magazine, which is where I've been a columnist for a little while, et cetera, et cetera. It cites those things too. So it's a great resource. They have a good exclusive plan for, excuse me, a good exclusive plan for Bring Your Worth TV watchers and listeners. If you happen to be listening, it's a free trial. So check it out, give it a spin. Just go to shortform.com/Damon, or you can go ahead and sign up if you want to go get it going, and it's 20% off. It's a good deal. So I would suggest you take advantage of it. I don't know how long we've been having this deal, but we ended up partnering earlier this year. Thank you again for short form for coming through. All right. So today we're going to talk about my favorite emotional intelligence questions. Question number one. If you had a magic wand, if you had a magic wand, shout out to Wicked in theaters everywhere soon. If you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? If you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? This actually came from my first therapist. I want to respect the privacy, so I'm not going to mention their name, but it was a wonderful person. They were African American, just like I am, and they were a guy. So as a male African American therapist, actually reminded me of my father's because I have a stepfather as well as a biological father. I mention that because it's really key as far as it doesn't mean that your therapist, whoever you connect with, has to look exactly like you or be of your culture, but it certainly does help. And there's an amazingly dearth, I think that's the word, lack of lack of African American therapists, particularly African American male therapists. So I lucked the hell out. So very, very thankful for him. Shout out to you. I hope you're doing wonderful wherever you are. And I was having a hard time. He said, if you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? This question is powerful. Before I get into why this question matters so much, I've got to shout out Dr. Charmaine Jackman with one of my favorite t-shirts. Yes, I wear it to family reunions. Get you a therapist. You can get the t-shirt. It's available. I think it's still available now. I got it earlier this year. The link is right there. Just go to innopsych.com. The link is right there. Check it out. It's not even a referral or nothing. I just rock with Dr. Jackman's work, and particularly with this shirt. So thank you, Dr. Jackman. I appreciate that. Why it matters so much as far as with this question, if you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? It matters for two big reasons. Number one, it's able to help you uncover your desires. Because sometimes, if we, when I was in actually, it wasn't grad school, when I was in undergrad, and one of my favorite teachers talked about there being overactive editors and underactive editors. Underactive editors are like sumo wrestlers. They move really slow. And so when you do a piece of writing or you have something that you're going to say, then it's like your brain takes a while to process it. And your stuff might come out kind of weird. And it's like, oh, well, I should have said it a different way. You ever have that feeling? That's having a slow editor, like a sumo wrestler. Shout out to Japan. You're moving really slow. Having an overactive editor is like having a monkey. That means that as soon as a thought comes into your head, you're over editing it. I have a little bit of both. My background is journalism, so I've tangled with both of these editors in my mind. We often do the same thing with our desires. Before before we even get it to our conscious, it's like, wow, I really would like to be loved for who I am. Let's say a simple thing like that. We can immediately jump in with the voice of our parent or guardian who was super critical, the voice of the public who didn't necessarily have faith in the work that we were doing, and the people around us who misunderstood us, and be like, Damon, no, no one's gonna love you for who you are. Don't even don't even think about that. And so before you know it, poof, it's gone. The magic wand question kind of plays with that because it says, no, actually, you can let's go into this fantasy world, which isn't really a fantasy world, and say, what exactly would you do or have? And then once that question is answered, then you can go deeper. remember talking to a client years ago. Actually, it was a potential client to someone I knew. And they're talking about they had a particular problem. The problem is that they needed money. What do you need money for? Why do you need money to get this thing done? Well, why do you need to get this thing done to go forward with your business? Oh, because da da da. And going layers down, kind of like the one of the coaching rules where you ask why 3 to 5 times, right? And come to find out, they needed, and from an ego standpoint, from a security standpoint, they needed to feel legitimate. So to feel legitimate, they had to pay someone X amount of dollars to do this to their product or their service. But actually it wasn't necessary because that was actually insecurity they had. Once you get into the magic wand land, then suddenly it starts to peel away those layers. And it's like, oh, I just want to be happy. Well, what does it require for you to be happy? Well, it requires a lot of money. Well, why does it require a lot of money? Well, because then I can do things for my family. So you don't deserve happiness because you can't do anything for your family that would make them feel happy? Isn't that their isn't that their duty to make themselves happy just like you have to make yourself happy? Oh, see that quickly. That quickly, it just cuts to the chase. We're really talking about emotional intelligence, not just from a therapy standpoint, as far as people being a therapist. I am not a therapist, just to be clear. I've seen plenty, not only from a therapist standpoint, but also from and a coach standpoint, which I can talk about, but also from the standpoint of healing yourself. You don't need another person to ask these questions. You can ask yourself that question right now. And then you go as deep as you want to go, as deep as you can go. If it's too much for you, if you feel overwhelmed, then find some support. Do that. But these are things that we can actually do on our own too. If we're feeling stuck in our business, we're feeling stuck in our family or personal situation, whatever it is, particularly as solopreneurs, as non-traditional entrepreneurs, as side hustlers. Excuse me. Once we get into that space, again, I'm emphasizing the solopreneurship. It's just this is what you see right now. This is how I work. I work right here at this desk. You know, I don't have a board of directors. At the moment, I don't have a co-founder. Like I'm just kind of on my own. And so these questions hopefully will help you get to those deeper levels so you can like raise up your emotional intelligence. One of the worst things we can do is not ask these tough questions, and then we end up operating on autopilot. I've talked about this in the complete Bring Your Worth collection, particularly in the first, very very first book, The Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, where so many of us are on autopilot because we're being driven by things and we don't recognize what we're being driven by. So the first layer to the question, if you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? It actually allows us to understand our true needs and what we're actually looking for. The second part of it is it helps us face that these things may never happen. You may never get the acceptance from your family. Your product may never be a bestseller or be featured at one of the major big box stores. There's no guarantee of that. My first startup, it was very much a small thing, even though I pushed it really hard, but it helped me get on the stage at TED. My second startup, co-founded it with my two co-founders. Hope you are doing wonderful. And it became twice in a row in 2014. It twice became the number one app in the world. I put the same amount of effort into both of them. Probably more effort into the first one, to be honest. You just kind of roll the dice. You don't know. And so there's certain things that could fulfill your heart's desire that may never happen. The magic wand thing basically says, all right, it might never happen. Now you can face it because you actually know what those desires are. Such a great question. Actually, very much informed my early adulthood. So thank you so much to my first therapist. I appreciate you. And of course, the shirt is available from Dr. Jackman. You can find all the links I'm talking about below. If you want to go deeper into these big questions, one of my favorite books of the year, you can tell it's been through some stuff. My kids have already spilled water on it like 3 times. Look at this thing. Ooh, you can tell it's my summer read. Man, Shout out to Dr. Kristen Neff. Shout out to you. One of my favorite books of the year. Really simple title, Self Compassion. It doesn't get any simpler than that. For my generation and for right now, I'd say right before the current era, we talked a lot about self love and you need to love yourself, give some self love, da 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 da. And it's like, no, actually, we need self compassion. I mean, we love ourselves to a certain extent, but self compassion is when you screw up. Self compassion is when you give your best. And to quote James Ingram, you give your best and you guess your best wasn't good enough. You don't make it. I've I've done 27 books, two startups, for the TED Talk-ish things, including some TEDx's. Yeah, I hear you on failure. Kind of how it works. But if we don't let ourselves go outside, we're not gonna play to that next level. And oftentimes, back to the subconscious and unconscious thing, we actually stop ourselves before we start because we're afraid of failing. Afraid of looking silly or stupid. This actually helped a lot with all the transition I've had this year. It helped so much as far as understanding where I was coming from. And it plays a lot into that big question. You have to figure out what you need. What are the ways that you can give yourself what you need, no matter what's going on in the outside world, particularly right now? Ooh, we definitely need some love for sure. Shout out to self compassion. Appreciate your work, Dr. Neff. One of my biggest guides, how to know yourself more, a beginner's guide. I get into the Johari window that helps you understand what you know and what other people know about yourself. I get into some of the work of the next person I'm going to talk about, Dr. Brene Brown. I get into understanding your shadow, like all kinds of stuff in there. It's about 3.5 hours. Works well with audio. I think two of the episodes in it are live and the rest of them are recorded. If you're taking a long walk, I know we have the holiday season happening here in the United States, beginning with Thanksgiving in a couple weeks. Take it, download it, the audio, take it on the plane with you, whatever. Do your thing. This is really good as far as if you want to do the work, you want to have almost like a master class, long form energy with it. It's a popular episode as well. I hope you guys get a lot out of it. So, if you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? What will work for you right now? Feel free to jump into the comments if you have something on your mind and there's some type of thing that you would like to make happen. And yeah, it might be worth unpacking why exactly you want it to happen. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown, and here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a not-traditional entrepreneur. Here every Wednesday at what time? 11 p.m. Just went out my brain. Been doing it for years. Went out my brain. 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free, whether you're on Amazon, LinkedIn, or more importantly, here on the show. If you subscribe to the show and you put on the notifications, it allows me to go ahead and make sure the show continues on. And I know that you guys are rocking with me and you're supporting the show. Today, we're talking about our favorite or my favorite emotional intelligence questions. If you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? Is this person doing the very best that they can? Courtesy of Dr. Brene Brown, paraphrase, definitely in my own language. Is this person doing the very best that they can? It sounds like a really simple question. It sounds very basic. I can't speak for you, but I've been in situations where I've been almost concerned with someone else or even a group of people. Like, it's almost like something being right in your face and you could see it. You, it's 3D, it's right there. And nobody else around you, or this one person, or what have you, or this group, they can't see it. That's when this question comes into play because maybe they can't. It reminds me of me being directionally challenged. I have a hard time with directions. I will get lost very easily, even in places that I know. That's just how I'm built. I don't mind sharing it with y'all because if you ever meet me, you'll recognize it right away. But me understanding the emotions and the flow of a room or of a crowd, I'm a keynote speaker, so I do a lot of public speaking. The flow of a crowd, when the energy shifts in a room, I can map it like Magellan. That's just the way my brain works. It's the way my heart works. I've always been like that, according to my parents. So if you're giving me a physical map and saying, "Oh, well, just take a left, take a right, take your left," and then you see the second light, I'll just look like a deer in headlights. But he asked me, "Hey, what was the vibe in that room when you did that speaking engagement the other day, or when you coached that person the other day? How did that go?" You would think I was, Tony Stark's with engineering. We all have our particular strengths and, well, places where we can grow. And frankly, I'm halfway through my life right now, middle age. I could spend the rest of my life trying to get better with maps. I'm only going to increase this much. And I have a pretty healthy ego. I know I'm only going to increase this much. Where other people in my family, you can throw them in the middle of the Death Valley, which isn't too far from here. I live in Las Vegas. Death Valley is probably like 100 miles away, something like that. You can throw them in there. They will come back here and be hanging out at my place. But give them a day or two. Probably survive the whole thing too. I'm not that guy. When you're interacting with other people and you ask this question, is this person doing the very best that they can shout to Dr. Brene Brown, two things happen. The first thing is that you develop empathy, where you're like, oh, wow, this is the best they can do. Oh, wow, that's okay. This is all I'm going to get from them. This isn't gonna, again, you see the pattern here. If you heard the first question, this is the second question. This is the best they can do. This isn't gonna change anytime soon. This is it. They're maxed out. I got a I've had a long time family car, and someone's pulling up in a Ferrari. I could be pushing my baby as hard as I want to. Ferrari's just gonna tap on the gas and then I'm in the dust trail. We all have our Ferrari moments and we all have our family car moments. That's just kind of how it works. But that leads to the second part of it. First thing is like having empathy, where it's like, oh, that's all you can do, and believing it, which is as cynical as I can be sometimes. That's hard. Believing it, that's the best that someone can do. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. It's part of that saying. The second part is that you begin to drop judgment. Because what happens is that you realize you're judging them based on what you can do. You're judging them based on what you can do. I have 2 degrees in journalism. So if we're going to talk writing, I can talk writing all day. Yeah. If you put me in front of a toilet and say, fix it, it's like maybe 4 or 5 things I can do just because I've been a homeowner. It's like 5 things I can do with a toilet. But you put me against someone from the Plumbers Academy or something, they're going to run circles around me. But that's like them getting mad at me or me getting mad at them because, they can't write a 45-minute keynote. It doesn't match up. When those things don't match up, then we have the opportunity to actually show up as our kindest self. And that's what we really want to do, right? If someone is incapable of doing something, we first have to recognize and accept that they're not capable of doing it, that they're doing their best. Number two, we can't measure them or judge them based on what we can do. When you say it out loud, it makes no sense. Why would we judge somebody else based on what we can do? They're different people for a reason. This question, I think, gets to the heart of it. And as you tell, it's one of my favorite questions. I love Brene Brown's work. This is, I think, exemplary of what a lot of her work boils down to. The question's actually from Rising Strong, my favorite book from Brene Brown. There's like two of her later books I have not read yet. So as of right now, this is my favorite book. I've read it several times. Like I have in like 5 different formats. But I do not have a physical copy on me. Go figure. But of course, it's available on all your platforms. And I got the link below for y'all. Fantastic book. It comes from the Teddy Roosevelt quote about the man in the arena. And it doesn't matter how many times someone falls. The question is how they rise strong. When you fall on your face, when you're embarrassed, when you have shame and guilt. Shame means you feel like other people are judging you based on your actions. Guilt means that you're judging yourself because you feel like you screwed up. How do you get back up? Knowing that you might end up in the dirt again. That's where the quote comes from. The whole quote is in the book, as well as so much great insight from Dr. Brown. Fantastic stuff. If you want to learn more about her work, this is becoming arguably the most popular episode of Bring Your Worth on the whole channel. Brene Brown's Secret to Accepting Difficult People. I break down what I'm talking about in the quote. Is the person doing the very best that they can? Sounds like it's resonated with a lot of people that have been coming through the show. If you have not watched it, out of all of these, be sure and watch this episode. It's only like 6-7 minutes long, but it seems like a lot of you are getting out of it, not getting out of it, get a lot out of it. There's also a whole discussion that you'll see in the comments about people in their own situations, and you might be able to get something from it. If you don't go a lot deeper, Begin Emotional Intelligence, Brene Brown for Beginners, about 45 minutes long. It includes the aforementioned episode about difficult people, as well as a lot of other stuff when I've covered Brene Brown on this channel. I think you guys would really appreciate that, particularly if you're tuning in to today's show. My entrepreneurial coach, Damon Brown, here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV, Wednesdays live at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free and grab my latest book, The Complete Bring Your Worth Collection. And of course, you can listen to the audiobook right now. Well, after we finish talking on the show. It's about 8 hours long, and it includes, I think, seven books, including some bestsellers in there. So it really is a gift to y'all. When was the last time you were in a situation and you didn't treat someone well, or you cut off a relationship or what have you, or you judged someone? Forget cutting off. Sometimes it happens. You judge someone because they weren't at the level that you were at. How much would this question have changed how you operated? Are there certain ways that you could have supported that person once you accepted that that was the best that they can do? Things kind of change once we throw judgment out the window. So is this person doing the very best that they can? Powerful question, one of my favorites. There's a big one. If this experience were to last forever, what quality would have to emerge for me to have peace of mind? Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith. If this experience were to last forever, ever, what quality would have to emerge for me to have peace of mind? That's Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith. Fantastic question, one of my favorites. You'll see it in my book, Career Remix, as well as, I want to say, the original Bite-Sized Entrepreneur is in one of those. But original Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, of course, is in my latest book, The Complete Bring Your Worth Collection. Listen, this is one of my favorite questions, and it appeared in several of my business books because it gets to the heart of something. There's going to be certain things that are never going to change. Ever. Ever. And what Dr. Beckwith is saying is that you're going to have to find your way on this lovely green earth without necessarily getting what you want, how you want, in the way that you want. That's what it is. It's not cynicism. It's not even realism. It just is. Because the faster you get on that journey, as far as acceptance, the more you see the other opportunities that you have. first element of this is finding peace wherever you are. So, particularly in the last year or two, particularly here in America and some other places abroad, excuse me, the amount of changes and adaptations, and even look at the past 5 years. Think about the past 5 years, wherever you are in the world, how much things have changed. Amazing. How much we survived, how much we continue to survive, how many people have passed. Let's keep it real. There needs to be a level of grounding that happens because the world is not going to stay the same. As much as doing the work of this show, doing the work of the 27 books, doing the coaching, what motivates me is creating a better world. I also recognize that probably within my lifetime, that work will not be done, which might as well say that work will be never done, at least within my lifespan. So you have to find comfort in that the world's always going to evolve. And it might not go in the way that you like. Does that mean you stop doing the work? Does that mean you stop showing up? Were you doing the work just because you thought you'd quote unquote win? Because aren't going in your favor? That's reason enough for you not to make the world better for the next group of people or things that are here. If that's enough, then it becomes a question of how committed are you to this part of the journey and why were you doing it? This isn't meant as a judgment towards you or even towards myself, because I definitely have felt that way sometimes. But what he's forcing you to do is to look beyond the right now. I can't go forward because this hasn't happened yet. I can't go forward because this person hasn't changed their mind. I can't go forward because this group won't get out of my way. Is that all it takes? You're just going to be miserable then, huh? If this thing were to last forever, what would you need to facilitate, to bring in, to talk about, to create, to have peace? And I don't think he's talking about giving up. Sometimes we put so much power into other people, other organizations, other groups, and say they took this from us. Well, now they did because we gave it to them. It wasn't tooken, pardon my English, but it wasn't tooken until we said it was tooken. Someone can take your joy. You kind of have to give it to them. Not saying it's easy, but so many of these things that feel like black and white, that feel like either or, that feel like they've taken us away. Really, once we say that, kind of we've kind of given it away. What do you actually have control over? That's what, in my opinion, what Dr. Beckwith is saying. Zero in on what you have control over. I control my mind, my heart. I have limited control over my family as far as guiding them. I have some control over this channel. I have control over what I'm going to write. I have control over what I'm not going to write. I have control over what I'm going to eat, how I'm going to take care of myself, how I'm going to rest. I have control about what I'm going to ingest. I have control over how much I look at social media. Done whole episodes on that. And I'm just going off the top. I'm just spitballing here. There's so many things that we actually have control over. And when we're spiraling, having a difficult time, overwhelmed, disappointed, angry, I've been all those things this year. I'm not trying to judge you. I'm speaking from experience. We have a choice. We can either say these things need to change or I'm not going to have peace. Or we can say I can cultivate my peace by doing these things that I actually have control over. It's always a choice. Fantastic follow-up to this. The Body Keeps the Score by, always screw up his name, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Bezer Vanderkolk respects your work, and he's still around doing his thing. In fact, I know some folks are trying to get to his seminars. Good luck getting to his seminars. I heard he's very popular these days. Fantastic book. I've heard about this book for years. You've probably heard this little quote: "The body keeps score," etc. It comes from this. This is not light reading. It is heavy. My kids wanted to read this because I'll read out loud to them. I was like, I'm not reading this out loud to you at all. There's a lot of trauma informed things in here, as they say, a lot of intense stuff that talks about. So, you know, buckle up if you're going to read this one. But it's a fantastic book that talks about how what we don't deal with appears in other forms, usually in the physical form. When we say we're over it, we're not really over it. The body keeps the score. It knows you're not over it. So this ties into Dr. Beckwith's work in question, I believe, in that he's not saying if this situation were to last forever, then you would have what would it what would it be required for you to have peace? What he's saying is that what would be required to have a real peace? As one of my mentors says, you can go and say you're over it, but did you let it go? Some of us, including me, have a hard time with that. This is a great warning to say, yo, if you're saying you let it go and you didn't really let it go, it's not like it goes anywhere. Fantastic book. Read it, as you can tell, from cover to cover, and dog-eared the heck out of it. Please go ahead and read it if you're interested in some of the, I think they call it a psychosomatic. It's a connection between the psyche and soma being the body, psychosomatic connection. I nerd out on it. I think y'all would appreciate it as well. And 4 ways to self-sabotage, a beginner's guide. Worth checking out as far as you understanding how you can be better towards yourself, how you can be more honest with yourself, and getting into these 3 questions we talked about today, how you can actually raise your emotional intelligence without destroying yourself. And I think it's such an important part of the journey. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. I'm here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise an non-traditional entrepreneur. You watch Bring Your Show every Wednesday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free. If you want more after this episode, click any of the links below, and I think that'll be a nice after after dessert for that. My personal favorite, which after this you should check out, would be again one of the most popular episodes on the channel. Brene Brown's Secret to Accepting Difficult People. If you're asking yourself these 3 questions or you're curious, you might be going through some emotional intelligence stuff right now. This would be a great place to start. Let me know. Drop in the comments. What do you think you would need right now to find peace? Because what you really are after is suddenly not available. Drop a line in the comments. Even if you're watching the replay, I'd love to hear it. Until next time, remember you can always bring your worth. Wait, yeah. You can always bring your worth. I thought I got mixed up. You can tell it's Friday in my mind. It's Wednesday, but it's Friday in my mind. Remember, you can always bring your worth. And you can always build from now. Take care of yourselves and others. I'll see you guys in the comments.